Hey friends, today I'm going to show you how I made this loose replica of the Holy Grail from Sailor Moon S. What I used for this project was a jar similarly shaped to the Holy Grail, which obviously feels a little bit like cheating, Sculpey and a small knife like a paring knife to cut the Sculpey, a hot glue gun, hot glue, and E6000, tile grout or mastic, which is basically an industrial type glue for tile and mosaics, metallic gold paint, red nail polish and paint brushes, a 100 grit sanding block or sandpaper, and acrylic gems that I got from All Star Co. If you can't find acrylic gems like I have, you can create gems with Sculpey and then paint them whatever colors you want. I highly recommend painting them with really pretty sparkly nail polish. I found this jar at Goodwill and I tried to remove the lid, but it has been super glued on and it wouldn't come off even after an acetone soak, so I'm gonna wing it and hope for the best. I start by taking some well-worked Sculpey and feeding it through the pasta maker. I like to go with not the thinnest setting, but not really the thickest either. Somewhere in the middle works really well for me. And then I wrap it around to make sure it'll fit nicely, and then I cut off the excess. And then I gently smooth out the line to make it uniform. Using more Sculpey, I create a flat thing, basically where the center moon and gem piece will go later. And then I make a worm, and I flatten it with the pasta maker, and I cut 4 equal length pieces. These are gonna go above the Sculpey piece that I've already put on the glass jar. And then I'll place them on there and smooth out the line to connect them, and then cut off the excess from the top. Then I make another worm and cut it into 4 equal parts to make the decorative beveling under the midsection of the jar. I make them into these little smileys. And then I put them on the jar and squish them into place so they'll stick. And I roll out these little balls to cover the squished bits because I'm a professional. Because this piece is glass and sudden temperature changes, plus being glued shut with this hideous sand inside, I put it in a cold oven and then slowly heat it up to 275 degrees. Once it comes to temperature, I turn off the oven and let it bake for 15 minutes, and then open the oven and let the heat slowly dissipate. That way the glass doesn't break or explode or, whatever. Now I'm cutting out these curved pieces because this is going to be the portion at the top that looks like a crown. Oddly enough, this is the part of the process that I hate. I feel like it's never as good as it could be because of the way the ends overlap. It's also difficult to make the points flare out. It's either not flary enough or it's too flary, and I always have to start over. It drives me crazy. And then I roll out another worm and attach it to the edge of the crown piece. This is my favorite part though. I love making this cute crescent moon that goes on the top. I gently roll out a chunky worm, but I roll the ends to be a little bit thinner, and then I bend it into a crescent. And then I put a little dent into the bottom of the crescent because that'll be a good place for hot glue to go later, doing future Mallory a favor. After this, I'll start adding little decorative beads. Yes, they will fall off in the oven, but that's why I buy so much super glue. Love super glue. Then I make these itty bitty inchworms, I guess you could call them, to finish decorating the crown piece, and then it's back into the oven for a slow roast and cool down. And then while that's happening, I roll out some larger pieces because I'm going to create the wings using these. I'll cut these larger pieces into templates, bake them, and then once they're cooled, I can use those templates to kind of thicken on the Sculpey to make it 3-dimensional. I will bake these separately from the jar because I think they'll need a little bit longer to cook. Once everything has cooled off, I will take hot glue to one side of the jar and add one of the wings. This is tedious and dangerous. Hot glue has legitimately put people in the hospital, and I personally have a scar on my leg from a massive drip of hot glue back when I was making a silence glaive. Then I painstakingly hold a wing in place until that glue hardens, and then I repeat on the other side. The easy bit will be gluing the crescent on top because I made that dent earlier. Thank you, past Mallory. I love you and I miss you. So once the glue is all cured or dried or whatever you want to call it, I add the mastic. Now, what is mastic? It's kind of an industrial glue for tiling, and I learned to use this stuff when I was in high school. We used it for mosaics, and I fell in love with it, and I've sculpted so much stuff out of it. I've been using it in my craft since literally the year 2000. At one point in like 2009, the local hardware store stopped carrying it, and I completely freaked out, but it's back, baby. So I'll cover the part where the wings are connected in a non-cute way to make it look cohesive. This stuff will take a couple days to dry, especially if it's really humid. Plus, I do use a lot of water to smooth it out, so when it does dry, it's going to crack, and then I'll have to add in more of this stuff. So this whole process probably takes like 5 days. Once it is dry, I can use some sandpaper to smooth it out completely, and then I dust it off really well. I don't want any dust on this thing when I start painting, or I will become irrationally angry. I like to start with light colors when I'm painting because I'm clumsy and sloppy, and in my experience, starting with red and getting it where the gold will go means having to slop on more gold later to cover my red mistakes, and it's a nightmare. So, for the creme de la creme, Mooncat brand nail polish in the shade The Arsonist. I am obsessed with Mooncat nail polish, and this is going to add such a cool finish and sparkle to this project. And it only took 3 coats to completely cover everything, so I'm thrilled with that. And then I add these acrylic gems that I have been hoarding since 2004, like the cheapest dragon ever. This is where the E6000 really comes in handy. Then I pop on a small crescent I made and painted with The Arsonist. And that's it. This is not an exact replica because I was trying to make it from memory, and that's what I get. I should have looked at a picture. My next grail, though, will be as close to an exact replica of the manga version because that's what you all voted for, and that's what you're going to get. Be sure to subscribe if this is the kind of content you like, and stay tuned for more weird projects.